it was kind of in the basement of the museum. I don't know if you're ever familiar with the Philadelphia Art Museum, but it's a big building. And it was kind of dark, but I put a paper down and I made an ink wash. And the art teacher really liked it. And so what happened was she asked if it could be put on the Philadelphia, an advertisement, a pamphlet for advertising the art classes at the Philadelphia Art Museum. Took a couple of years to publicize it, but what impressed me as like a first grader was that me and my mother had to make a special trip up to the museum, go up into a big office with like a director and sign all these legal papers to allow them to publicize it. So it like impressed on me that even as a little kid, when I, in first, second grade, that someone could like value something I make. And so it really etched that into my conscience, as well as my mother always just taking me and my sisters to art museums. And I, throughout my life with my mother, would go to art museums. But I didn't really take art classes till in middle school. They didn't really offer it. In high school, I took one art class, but I got into the University of Wisconsin here in Madison, and I was initially agricultural economics, and so I was taking regular classes. But when I first got to Madison to start school, I decided, well, with my interest in art a little bit, I'd want to take a painting class. But as a non-major with UW back then, you had to take like art history a couple of semesters and a drawing class. So what I did was I took the art history first couple of semesters, and like as a sophomore, I took a drawing class, and sure, the art teacher explained, cast shadows, contour lines, and vanishing point, but then he brought in a model. And so the first class, I couldn't quite draw the model, but then the second class, I really could. And I had all these cast shadows, and all the proportions were right. And I just said, well, this is something I can kind of do. So it was like around sophomore, junior year that I switched majors. My parents weren't too happy about that, but it was like in the 1980s. So the art market was really publicized. Like neo-expressionism was happening, and people were graduating from art schools selling paintings for $9,000-$10,000 a piece before the paint was even dry. But of course, by the time I graduated in '88, kind of the art market had imploded a little bit. And in the meantime, my parents had moved to the Middle Eastern country of Kuwait. So I graduated, went out to Kuwait. I worked at an American school. But ever since graduation from college, I would keep a sketchbook. So I would just like make a quick sketch in the sketchbook, just spending like 5-10 minutes a day making a sketch. If I was like at a restaurant, I'd sketch in there. And if I was traveling, I'd sketch wherever I was. And if I was sick, I'd sketch the inside of my room. And I did that for like 20 years. Every day, so I have like a lot of sketchbooks filled with just random sketches. But while I was in Kuwait, a friend of my parents, a Danish woman named Ann Hansen, she heard I was an artist and said, well, I can help set up an art show for you. So she got different companies involved in the US Embassy and set up these art shows. I made like 40 or 50 oil paintings, and we'd have an art show at the SAS Hotel, and they'd basically like sell out. So I had 3 shows there. And then I moved back to America, and then back to Madison about 20 years ago, 22 years ago, moved back to the Wanakee and Madison area. But just all this encouragement early on, art shows in Kuwait, I just keep just motoring along, just making more and more artwork. And right now I think what I want to do, since you can kind of see an example of one of my paintings, it's considered more, it's evolved to be more amateur or outsider art genre, and we're going to play a video that's going to explain the evolution of that for everyone from Crash Course. I guess that's the focus of me being here, is to encourage you just to make art no matter what your skill level is. And you can make it from different themes and any way you want, and to make your own art is the focus of my presentation. So and use artistic license and just best art advice I ever got was just, especially drawing, just draw, and if you just draw just a few minutes every day, then you develop a theme or skills that you can appreciate in yourself, and then work on from there. So next step in the presentation is for me to make a demonstration of my artwork, just to go over my materials. A lot of times I use cold press watercolor blocks, they're called, so they're already pre-stretched on there on the watercolor paper, and you can paint on them and then peel it off, and then there's like 10, 20 sheets on each block. In the exhibit upstairs in the reading room, a lot of my pieces are this size, 16 by 20 inches, and I just buy them pre-cut and ready to go. And these are also just acid-free, 100% cotton. I try to use archival materials as much as I can. Just so you know, I use these Micron pens, just 0.5 inch nib on them. They're also like alcohol based, so they're archival. My palette, pretty simple palette. I have 2 blues, 2 browns, 2 greens, 2 reds, a purple, a yellow, and a black. And I pretty much just, and then a lot of times I'll just mix the colors on the paper if I want variations of that. My general technique is to use just 3 different brushes, a big one, just to do large washes, a medium-sized one, and a small one to add detail. So I kind of keep it pretty simple. I have, when I'm traveling, like if I'm in a coffee shop, I'll use my little cup, which has a lid for water, and here I just filled this big cup, but I usually just use this small one. For me, a lot of times, if it gets a little muddy or something in the water, it still adds to the character of the finished piece, which is what I like. A lot of other people might want to have just the bright colors, authentic colors, or have a bigger palette, but I just keep it simple. When I'm I usually sketch on site, so I go down to State Street, and I'll have my I'll take a canvas and then put my paper on it to hold it for support, and then just kind of kneel down on there, sit on one of the benches, and just sketch on site is my usual thing. But since I'm here, I'm going to do a demo of me just sketching doing a State Street scene, just from my own memory. But I usually like to be the actual site so I can like add a little extra detail, or like, I don't know, I knew an artist in Portland, Oregon who like only could work from photographs because that's how he was trained in school. But that seems so limiting when like, if you want to like get a panorama of the whole scene, like, it'd be hard to have a photograph that would cover the whole scene, and then you can use artistic license to add more dimensions and change where you want things so you can see what is most important to you in the presentation, in what your finished product will be. Another thing I did do is I use Van Gogh watercolor paint in tubes, so I just squirt it out into my palette. But like Winsor Newton is high quality brand, but they're usually a lot darker, and kind of had a problem with that when I was graduating from art school. I had some paintings, and I went to a coffee shop, and they said they were too dark because they had too many browns and such. So I kind of emphasize make happier scenes with brighter colors. So that's kind of the focus there. But right now, I'm just going to any questions? No, anyway. But anyway, on the field of outsider art, I just kind of believe that there's magic and beauty through art. Yeah.
I have a question. So when you're in your space, where you're sketching, and you're looking at something, like what do you find, like, how do you make an interesting picture? Because I can like take a picture or look at a picture, but it like doesn't have the same like appeal that when I see paintings, I'm like, oh yeah, that is an interesting angle, or like, so how do you get to that?
Well, I guess it's come from practice, but yeah, to get to something like this, you have to think of like, what do you want in your foreground, your middle ground, and your background? So you have to like, and then you have to organize your sketch accordingly. Just so you sit there and kind of look at your scene and figure out what emphasis you want to have. What focal point you want. Like this is kind of the Capitol building, and so then you build your sketch around. For me, I start from the left and work to the right, but I focus. I make sure there's space for the focal point. Anyway, yeah, and then just try to, and that's what's most important about being on site, is like, if the sketch goes here, but then there's more room on this side, that I would be there to know to add what's there, because I'm working off of life like that. Anyway, it's good to have a good sense of humor when you're making sketches, and that's the whole thing. I make a sketch, but I don't always keep within the lines, and you have to kind of just, accept mistakes, and that's what you get when you go to art museums a lot, is that you'll see the mistakes of the artists. Like, you could see a Rembrandt, and you could see, well, he built up the paint, which maybe he's doing on purpose, but other times, and you get to see the brushwork or over painting of a painting. It makes it very fascinating to go to museums like that and see works live like that. But that's what it's very important with art to accept mistakes and give grace to the artist that, you know, they did different colors for this for whatever reason they wanted, or certain things bled into other areas, and that makes it a work of art like that, because it's a human endeavor. But I don't know if everybody wants to come up front. I'll make a sketch of State Street, and I was going to do a demo of me painting it a little bit. Just showing you my general technique a little bit, but anyway, I just I've just, you know, this won't be, but I don't know how often you've been to State Street, but so I'm starting here left to right because that's how I usually work, and then just adding details here. From State Street, and I don't know how often you guys get to State Street, but there's a restaurant right here. I also wanted to mention that my pieces are also handled by Millward Farrell Fine Art on Monroe Street. I hope that's okay to say that here. They handle my local scenes. And
How many times do you think you have sketched State Street?
well, yeah, I usually do it on site, and you know, I've been here for 22 years, and it's the main piece that I work on. Like, it's like my most, you know. So I've, and that's what's interesting is, like, since I've been doing it for 22 years, just think that's just when the Contemporary Museum was built, and the new Orpheum, and the new building. So I, and then, like, what happened was, like last summer, they built new, like you can see it here, like a new bus stop that's on State Street. So that makes all the other ones, so I have to go back and remake, you know, I have to start, you know, keep making them, you know. So there's, so it's it's always something, yeah. But
I love seeing the line drawing you're creating. There's so much energy in it, and you're so decisive as you draw.
And,
that, that's really cool to watch.
that's like when I was a kid in New Jersey, my folks took us to an art auction and said, well, you can choose one painting or choose something you want, me and my sisters. And one sister saw this one, and it looked like a Picasso, and then the auctioneer, I remember this, said, well, that's not a real auction, it's not a real Picasso because he had to trace, you know? So that's the whole thing. Yeah, I wanted to say that also in the presentation here is like, you're the artist. You make the rules, so you don't make mistakes, and you should just have confidence making your drawings or your paintings, and just accept and go with the flow with them. Yeah, it's important to just have confidence, and just and also it comes with practice, and just draw away. You know, it's important to just have confidence. And yeah, I don't really like artists that like do little dashes to build up. You know, just go for it. You know, yeah. But of course, I have a lot of experience making this scene, so.
Yeah, wow, to do it from memory. Because I know what it looks like, but to then recreate it from, I don't have that amount of.
But
your proportions and perspective all looking good too. Fast and loose, it's really
it's just,
impressive.
oh, thanks. And you know, I just kind of, you have to just accept what's. And
So in your presentation, you mentioned having done oil paintings, which I imagine is a very different process from your style now. How did you evolve from that into your current watercolor and line drawings?
well, anyway, I was in Kuwait, and I had those art shows that were oil paintings. But then they were having an art fair, and they said, well, would you like to participate? Sure. So what I did was I just had all these sketches, and I thought, well, I'll make a sketch, enhance it with a little color, and make little watercolors for the art fair, a little smaller. So it just kind of evolved out of necessity or just practicality. That also, like, a lot of watercolors like hide all their lines, but I like to have this line so that I can have more detail. So mine's more of a sketch enhanced by color, but it just came out of like necessity that you know, that I had to you know, that I wanted to participate in that, and so then I just made I just made watercolors with the lines instead of hiding them. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I took one watercolor class at UW, but I guess like colleges don't really offer watercolor classes anymore. But anyway, you get the general gist of how I go about my,
Do you ever still use oils? Or are you pretty much no?
well, I did a series of oils because they have water-soluble oils now that you can use, and so I did a series this size of oil paintings of local scenes, but they didn't have as much detail, so it wasn't as pleasing. But so I've kind of moved back to just making watercolors like this. Yeah.
And if anybody has any questions, feel free to just jump in. I feel like I'm monopolizing.
Yeah, I'm wondering what the blue and red rectangles are.
Okay, down on State Street, they have They have on those corners, they have kind of tile work that are on the ground. They aren't as bright as that, but they're like blues and grays and light reds, and so I emphasize them as kind of guiding your eye through the composition. Yeah, maybe. Well, and now that you hear me say that, you should try to pay attention.
I'll have to look.
Yeah, look for it. Yeah, yeah, like. Yeah, it's and also they have them right up just in front of the Capitol here, right in front of the Capitol, and here and here and here and here. And I think other corners on State Street as well. That's the other fun part of just working on local scenes is like you get to you start like really looking, at things, and noticing, or even working on a watercolor, even if it is from a photograph, you're really looking at the scene and figuring out and seeing things that you don't normally see.
You start working from light to dark painting?
Paintings? Well, I'll be painting here in a second. But yeah, so anyway, you got an idea of, and then I start, you'll see, I'll start with, I work from, since my arm lays on it, because I work flat, I have to start top, left to right, kind of thing, in order to minimize me like putting my hand over it while I'm painting, and then smudging it or so, moving the paint around too much. But
has there been an unexpected place that you've sketched? You say that you sketch pretty much everywhere. Is there a place that you weren't expecting to sketch that drew your inspiration?
Well, I was in Venice once, and I was doing a bunch of bridges there, sketching. Because I've traveled quite a bit, living overseas for that 10 years in Kuwait. So I traveled and I was sketching, and then working up some watercolors from there. But then I do landscapes, and I do interiors of like bars, or like I did a Hemingway bar up in northern Michigan that they advertised. Well, Hemingway had been there, so I had to do the bar there, things like that. Yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing. Like, you should just have fun with your art. You know what I mean? Like I don't know, I don't have the sensibility. It all depends on your character and your sensibility. Like how much detail you want to go into. Like if you're a detail person and want exactly this, then go for it, okay? But for me, I'm more of a loose, more of a, you know, accepting mistakes and just drawing away, you know. And I want to have, I just kind of, so like the average sketch will take, so I kind of sketch this in a few minutes, okay? And I'd, you know, make more details. And so just for the presentation, I kind of finished a sketch like that, you know, like this. And so what I do is, like, if I'm down on State Street, I probably have a finished sketch like this, okay, with the general composition laid out, the way I see it, and how the accidents inform the decisions on how the composition is. And then I'll come back, like I'll sit in a coffee shop and I'll take my pen and re-sketch it. Sometimes I'll take a general photo, just especially if it's a new spot, just for colors, even though I'm not too hyper on colors myself. But it all depends on how exact I want to be with the finished painting. But anyway, I'll just, so that's kind of a finished sketch. So you can see how I like laid in more lines and doubled up, and I kind of like brought lines together that aren't necessarily on this one, you know, to try to emphasize more detail. So I spent another half an hour resketching everything again to get the get more definition involved. And this is kind of typical State Street, like people crossing at crosswalks and other people jaywalking, you know. You put a little character in there and fun into a painting. And then, or other times I'll leave, like here I put a lot of detail into the Contemporary Museum. There I left it white, just as a blank. You know, you should just play with your ideas a little bit. But then maybe I'll just paint now a little bit.
When you say you resketch, are you working on top of your original sketch, or are you starting something anew?
No, I'm sketching directly on top, and then I'm adding little details. Because when you're down, maybe the wind's blowing or something, and you know, and maybe I'm down on my knees, maybe my feet are falling asleep or something, then I'm like, I'll finish off my general sketch. And also, like, a lot of times, that's what's challenging about working outdoors, is like you have to like organize, well, it's going to be good weather on that day, so I'll go down and I'll make like top of, you know, I'll do like a sketch of top of State Street or go to the Union, you know. So I'll work up a few of these quick sketches, and then back in the coffee shop or at home, I'll re-sketch on top of it, adding maybe more lines and things that I remember from the sketch, and then usually that's the challenge of working outdoors, is you have to like organize with weather and wind and things, but and take advantage of good days. Anyway, I have this sketch. I'll just do a general. So I usually start with, and that's the whole thing. So I have my palette, and with watercolors, you know, they'll dry, so they're a little harder at the beginning. Like if you're working on an oil painting, it'll be, the paint is fluid already, so it's a little bit of a different technique. And then with the watercolor, all of your whites have to stay not painted on. Because it's, I mean, there are ways of lifting to bring back lighter colors, but you got to take advantage. So even with the watercolor, I'll paint light, and then I'll reinforce again. Maybe I'll get to that point with some of this painting of this piece, And then since I just have a few brushes, I have a piece of paper, you can see it here, like I'll dab it to clean it between colors so it doesn't get too muddy. So you have that to keep in mind as well. And then studying art history, you can like know Cezanne if you know him. He's a post-impressionist painter, and just inform yourself that how brushwork can go. Like with my skies, I usually just go horizontal instead of trying to go or vertical instead of going horizontal, and so because and I'll just paint away here, and then you got to keep in mind when I'll show you how the advantage of doing this certain colors. So as the water is going onto the palette, it's loosening up the pigment a little bit, and I'll show you how that comes into an advantage here.
You ever put water on the paper and then paint over that area?
I generally don't do that. Yeah, I just go straight pigment. But yeah, I mean, other people do water down their and then it makes for more fluid. But I don't mind if my brush strokes show up. Of course, with the sky, you can.
You have a preferred brand of brushes?
Boy, these are just a friend of mine bought these for me. They're Princeton Velvet Touch. I don't know, it's been a problem of mine is that I've just won't reinvest in new brushes. You can see this one's getting a little ratty, I could reinvest in getting a better brush there, yeah. But
Do you like natural hair ones or?
yeah, well, yeah, the natural hair, I mean, you don't. I think it holds water better. I mean, most art stores will advertise, well, this is a watercolor brush, yeah. But it's hard to know if it's going to work with your technique, But here I'll just. This guy usually takes the longest to paint in, but
When do you paint? Morning, afternoon, or is there a favorite time?
yeah, I just don't really work on art at night because it keeps me up. If I, especially after 4 o'clock, I just don't work on anything, even sketching really. I'm pretty much I'll go to State Street, get there at 10, 11 o'clock, make my sketch, and then resketch it, and then so yeah, a painting can take a few days, usually, because I'm what I'll do is I'll if it's good stretch of weather, I'll be sketching all the time, and then during the winter time I'll paint when it's cold outside and snowy and such, even though I'm making summertime scenes, you know? Yeah. But yeah, I guess there's a lot of myths around artists staying up really late at night and working on things. But anyway,
Yeah, there's a myth of writers too, who they're like, oh, stay up all night. It's like, no, most people can't do that.
yeah, I think
they fall asleep on the typewriter. You're like, it's not very productive.
yeah.
You do a lot of drinking. Like
Yeah. It's like, how do you know it's special?
Yeah.
Most people can't do that.
But well, you can see I kind of laid in the sky, okay, like that. And I don't mind the brush strokes, but it's a general good wash. Sometimes I'll put clouds in with lines and such, but now I kind of just put a blue sky so that you're focused on the details of the buildings more. And then, but then now I'll just move over to like my medium-sized brush, and I work left to right, top to bottom, like I was saying. So, and then also, even though it's probably not necessary, but I try to conserve paint. You know, like if I'll have a brush with reds, then I'll try to like do other areas of the painting that are red as well, because I can always repaint it if it doesn't have as much pigment. So now I'm moving over to a different color red, and that I might mix with the other red, but and then these windows are kind of red covered, and what I'll show you here, I'll take my detail brush. Now you know that the Capitol building is pretty much white, but the shadows of white is usually blue, so at least that's how I do it. So I'll take, since my palette is this filled with a lot of blue, I can get a lot of pigment with my detail brush because a lot of my lines I'll resketch or repaint over to emphasize the color of that line. So I'll since that I can grab on so I'm just working top to bottom, but you can see how my arm is here, so I wouldn't want to paint here, because then if it's a little bit wet, it'll get on my sleeve and then move up and such. So you gotta concentrate on that a little bit. And then the color of the brick on the side of these buildings is usually like a light brown. So I'm just laying that in here. And then
Do you let that dry, that
lighter buff color and then go back with gray over the windows?
I'll just take my black and paint over it. Yeah, like yeah.
You let it
Another
dry
layer.
though, right?
Oh, I usually just do my paintings all in one sitting.
Oh.
Yeah, like yeah. I mean, unless something really bothers me, then maybe I'll touch it up. But I usually I would sit here and paint, you know, for a half an hour or something, and try to. But it just seems to, yeah, I'm super fast, and then I'm not scared to make mistakes, I guess. I guess worst comes to worst, I could just not show that piece or not.
Yeah, I find it very inspirational how loose you are and just go with the flow. It's really fun to watch.
Oh, yeah, I've done other little demos and people find it relaxing to see me
Yeah.
paint.
Just decisiveness, like no hemming and hawing. You're just like, it's now green. I've now used red.
Yeah,
You're pronouncing red.
Yeah,
yeah.
like,
It's
you gotta just, you gotta just
so
go
then,
for it.
I mean, you are inspired by what you're drawing. So like, oh, it's a red brick building. I'll use red. But you know, as the artist, you mentioned you also make some decisions. Use your, what was it called, the artistic license, right,
yeah.
to make some decisions. And so when I'm thinking about making a decision artistically, I agonize. And there's no agony here.
Well, I guess what helps me is maybe I'm working off of life a little bit, so I have that reference, you know, like I'm not, like some of the decisions are made for me, you
Right.
know. I guess if you're just, you know, making a dragon, you might be worried about like making the wings a certain way, you know, to represent something for you, but that's the whole thing, and you know, you just gotta, you know, yeah. But
So do you find that it's more like, oh, on a whim, I'm gonna make this a little angled differently, and oh, that worked, I like it, or oh, that didn't work, I'll try again.
yeah, I'll start a sketch, yeah, and if things aren't working, then I can just
Do a
turn the
different
paper over and just learn from that mistake, and then correct what you want. Yeah, yeah. You know, but this sketch seemed like it was working okay. I mean, I had a lot of things in the foreground that are bringing your eye up and such. So this seems like it's working, you know. Yeah,
You know, and it's fascinating because, well, like how I described it is there's no agony here in your process, but then the end product is also, you know, very joyful. So then there's something that must come across in that process that is just bringing it, you know, decisive, bright, like happy, you know, movement,
Yeah.
energy. Yeah.
yeah, I just yeah, I guess I'm not. I just like painting, so I just don't
So you do
sweat
it.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I just it's
You just like it.
I just like
That's
it. So
awesome. That's
yeah,
awesome.
so I just yeah, you know, that's the whole thing. You can go with the herd, you know, and worry about the herd, you know, and what everybody's. You know, I've had one woman actually bought like 3 paintings of mine once, and then like 2 weeks later, you know, they were like this. she brought them back and said, I talked to my colleagues and my relatives, and they said, this is not art. And she gave them back to me.
Oh,
You know, things like that can happen, you know, when you have a different style, you know.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted to have the presentation with outsider art, just to inform like the viewers of the YouTube video or anybody that, you know, you should just open your eyes to all sorts of different styles and appreciate. Sure, now you know this didn't take too long, but like that you can like still appreciate, you know, this art of different techniques and yeah.
yeah, you just put in your windows.
Well, I know. I was worried about those windows.
Yeah. Well, we're just about right at 3 o'clock here.
Okay. Well, you got it just about
Yeah.
idea. So I put some details in. I'm leaving this one to soak in a little bit and maybe just add the orange a little bit because the outside of that sign is orange, and always have a and then I'd even demonstrate really like if something bleeds into another area, then you can always dab it with your paper towel and like soak it up before it gets too bad. But and then just to, you know, it's nice to end just because that's a major feature is to have orange for the sign of the Contemporary Museum. It kind of stands out on State Street too. But and then with these bricks here, I just kind of, I just kind of randomly patchwork them through red or blue and try to pay attention to that. Yeah, that'd be something fun to see when you go down to State Street next time if you haven't noticed that. But anyway, but it's been a pleasure and thanks so much for coming out and thanks everybody on the channel. And but hopefully you can learn more about outsider art and just simply appreciate what you make yourself and just make art. It's good for self-discovery as well as just observation of life and making something human and just accept yourself while you make it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.